The galactic crucible. The vast expanse of space stretched out before the INS Novastorm, its sleek, kilometer-long hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. As the flagship of the Intergalactic Alliance, the Novastorm was a marvel of cooperation between a dozen sentient species. Its very existence was a testament to the unity forged in the face of an implacable foe, the Void Collective. Inside the ship's cavernous main hangar, an assembly unlike any in Earth's history was taking place. Hundreds of alien beings stood in formation, their diversity a staggering display of evolutionary paths from across the galaxy. Towering, four-armed Kroloxians with their iridescent scales stood shoulder to shoulder with the gaseous Erins, contained within their humanoid-shaped environmental suits. The insectoid Vespera buzzed quietly in perfect hexagonal formations, while the silicon-based Petrova stood as still as statues, their crystalline bodies refracting the hangar's lights. At the head of this gathering stood General Zarkax, the most decorated Kroloxian warrior in the Alliance's history. His massive frame, easily twice the height of an average human, rippled with muscles honed through centuries of combat. 4 arms, each ending in clawed hands capable of rending steel, were clasped behind his back as he paced before the assembled troops. His voice, a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate the very deck plates, carried effortlessly across the hangar. "Warriors of the Alliance," Zarkax began, his yellow eyes sweeping across the formations. "You stand here today as the last line of defense against the greatest threat our galaxy has ever faced. The Void Collective grows stronger with each passing cycle, consuming entire systems and adding them to their biomechanical hive mind." A holographic display flickered to life behind the general, showing a map of the galaxy. Red tendrils spread like a cancer across one spiral arm, creeping ever closer to the core worlds. "Our latest intelligence suggests that the collective has developed a new strain of their parasitic spores," Zarkax continued, his upper right hand gesturing to the display. "These spores can now survive in a wider range of atmospheres, making more planets vulnerable to infection." A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled aliens. The Vespera's buzzing grew more intense, while the Petrova's crystalline bodies emitted a low, worried hum. Zarkax raised a hand for silence. "This is why our mission today is of utmost importance. We are to rendezvous with a research vessel near the Orcs Nebula. They claim to have developed a countermeasure to these new spores. Our job is to escort them safely back to Alliance space." As the general spoke, a small commotion near the back of the formation caught his eye. A diminutive figure, barely reaching the chest height of the Kroloxians around it, was struggling to lift a standard-issue plasma cannon. The weapon, designed to be wielded by the strongest species in the Alliance, looked comically large in the soldier's arms. Zarkax's eyes narrowed. With a speed that belied his size, he moved through the ranks, aliens parting before him like water around the prow of a ship. Within moments, he stood before the struggling soldier. "You there," the general's voice boomed, causing nearby troops to flinch. "What do you think you're doing?" The soldier, encased in a sealed environmental suit that revealed nothing of their species or features, straightened up as best they could while still gripping the oversized weapon. "Sir," came a slightly synthesized voice from the suit's speakers, "I was attempting to properly shoulder the plasma cannon as per Alliance regulations." Zarkax's upper lip curled in disgust. "And failing miserably. I see. What manner of weakling has the Alliance recruited now? Remove your helmet, soldier. Let's see what species thinks it can fight the Void Collective with such pitiful strength." There was a moment's hesitation before the soldier reached up and began to unseal their helmet. The assembled aliens leaned in, curiosity overcoming their military discipline. Even Zarkax found himself intrigued. What manner of being could be so small, so apparently frail, yet still be accepted into the Alliance's military? As the helmet came off, a collective gasp rippled through the hangar. Zarkax's 4 eyes widened in surprise. Staring up at him, with a determined set to their jaw, was a human. The general had heard of humans, of course. Their homeworld, Earth, had only recently made contact with the wider galactic community. They were a primitive species by most standards, having just mastered faster-than-light travel. Their inclusion in the alliance was more a political gesture than a strategic decision, or so Zarkax had thought. A human. Zarkax's voice dripped with disdain. They sent us a human. The soldier, a female of her species with close-cropped dark hair and almond-shaped eyes, met the general's gaze without flinching. Private Sarah Chen, sir. Earth's first volunteer for the Intergalactic Alliance Defense Force. A ripple of laughter spread through the assembled aliens. The idea that this tiny, soft creature could stand against the horrors of the Void Collective seemed absurd to many. Zarkax's face split into a wide grin, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Well, Private Chen, it seems your species has a grand sense of humor, or perhaps a death wish. Tell me, how do you expect to fight our enemy when you can barely lift the weapons we use to defend ourselves? Sarah's expression remained neutral, but there was a glint of something in her eyes. Determination. Defiance. With respect, sir, humanity has a long history of overcoming physical limitations through innovation and adaptability. The general threw back his head and laughed, a booming sound that echoed off the hangar walls. Innovation. Adaptability. The Void Collective assimilates entire worlds, absorbing the strengths of countless species. What could your tiny, isolated planet possibly know of true adaptation? Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the hangar in an ominous glow. A voice crackled over the ship-wide communication system. All hands to battle stations. Unknown vessels detected on approach vector. Energy signatures match Void Collective configurations. The assembled aliens burst into action, years of training kicking in as they rushed to their posts. Zarkax turned to the command console that had risen from the deck beside him, his forearms flying over the controls as he assessed the situation. Impossible, he muttered. We're nowhere near the front lines. How could they have found us here? As chaos erupted around her, Sarah Chen stood her ground, still gripping the oversized plasma cannon. Her eyes darted around the hangar, taking in the frenzied activity, the advanced technology, the alien beings rushing to defend their ship. For a moment, the human soldier and the alien general locked eyes across the hangar. In that brief exchange, a challenge was issued and accepted. Sarah gave a curt nod, hefted her weapon with visible effort, and moved to join her squad. Zarkax watched her go, a mixture of curiosity and skepticism warring in his mind. He shook his head, pushing thoughts of the unusual human aside. There were more pressing matters at hand. As the Nova Storm's engines roared to life, preparing to face an enemy that had consumed countless worlds, no one could have predicted the pivotal role that one small, determined human was about to play in the fate of the galaxy. The crucible of battle was upon them, and in its fires, the true strength of humanity would soon be tested. The mockery. The alarms continued to blare as the INS Nova Storm surged through space, its powerful engines propelling the massive ship away from the approaching Void Collective vessels. Inside the main hangar, organized chaos reigned as alien crew members rushed to their battle stations. General Zarkax's voice boomed over the commotion. False alarm. Stand down, all personnel. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the hangar. The red emergency lights faded, replaced by the standard illumination. Confused murmurs arose from the gathered aliens as they turned to their commanding officer for explanation. Zarkax's forearms were crossed over his broad chest, his yellow eyes narrowed in irritation. It seems our long-range sensors mistook a cluster of space debris for Void Collective ships. A simple malfunction, but one that could have cost us dearly in a real combat situation. The general's gaze swept across the hangar, settling on the small figure of Private Sarah Chen. The human was still struggling with her oversized plasma cannon, attempting to return it to its storage rack. A cruel smile spread across Zarkax's face. Perhaps this is an opportunity for a valuable lesson. Private Chen, front and center. Sarah snapped to attention, leaving the weapon leaning against a nearby crate. She marched forward, her steps quick and precise, until she stood before the towering Kraloxian general. Despite the vast difference in their sizes, the human's posture remained rigid, her chin held high. "Sir, Private Chen reporting as ordered," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. Zarkax began to pace around her, his massive form casting a shadow over the human soldier. "Tell me, Private, how would you have responded if this had been a real attack?" Sarah's response was immediate. "I would have manned my station and followed the orders of my superior officers, sir." The general let out a bark of laughter. "Manned your station? With what? That weapon you can barely lift." He turned to address the gathered aliens. "You see before you the latest addition to our alliance. Humanity, in its infinite wisdom, believes it can stand against the Void Collective." Chuckles and murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. The Vespera's wings buzzed in amusement, while the crystalline Petrova emitted tones that could only be interpreted as derisive. Zarkax continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order. Private Chen, let us see how humanity's finest measures up to the standards of the Intergalactic Alliance." With a gesture from the general, a series of holographic targets appeared at the far end of the hangar. Each one represented a different Void Collective entity: spore clouds, biomechanical drones, and even a massive high ship. "The test is simple," Zarkax announced. "Hit as many targets as you can in 1 minute. Use any weapon of your choosing." Sarah's eyes darted to the rack of Alliance weapons nearby. Each one was designed for aliens far larger and stronger than herself. She hesitated for a moment before squaring her shoulders. "Permission to use my own sidearm, sir?" The general's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Your own weapon? This should be interesting." "Permission granted, Private." Sarah reached down to her hip, unholstering a compact pistol. It looked absurdly small compared to the giant plasma cannons and laser rifles used by the other species. This elicited another round of laughter from the onlookers. "Whenever you're ready, human," Zarkax said, amusement clear in his voice. Sarah took a deep breath, raised her pistol, and nodded. The moment she did, the holographic targets began to move, darting across the hangar in complex patterns designed to mimic actual Void Collective behavior. What happened next left the entire hangar in stunned silence. Sarah's arm moved with blinding speed, the pistol barking out a rapid series of shots. Each report was followed almost instantaneously by the satisfying chime of a target being hit. The human's eyes never seemed to leave the sights of her weapon, tracking targets with an uncanny precision. Spore clouds burst into harmless pixels. Drones fell from the air. Even the massive high ship shuddered under the onslaught of well-placed shots to its vital areas. As the last second ticked away, Sarah lowered her weapon. The hangar remained silent for a long moment before erupting into a cacophony of buzzes, clicks, and exclamations in a dozen alien languages. Zarkax's face was a mask of disbelief. He stomped over to the scoring console, his clawed hands flying over the controls. "Impossible," he muttered. 98% accuracy. "How can this be?" Sarah stood at attention, her face betraying no emotion. "Request permission to explain." "Sir." The general whirled on her, his earlier amusement replaced by a mix of anger and curiosity. "Speak, human. How did you achieve this? Earth's gravity is significantly stronger than standard Alliance worlds." "Sir," Sarah began, "this gives humans greater muscle density and faster reflexes in standard gravity environments. Additionally, our history of tribal warfare and hunting has honed our hand-eye coordination over millennia." She paused, then added, "And I was the top marksman in my unit back on Earth." Zarkax's eyes narrowed. "Impressive, I'll grant you. But hitting holographic targets is one thing. Real combat against the Void Collective is another matter entirely. Your tiny weapon would be useless against their armor and regenerative abilities. A hint of a smile tugged at the corner of Sarah's mouth. With respect, sir, this is just a standard-issue Alliance laser pistol. I merely modified it for a more ergonomic grip. Its power output is the same as the larger models. This revelation sent another wave of murmurs through the crowd. The idea that this small human could so easily adapt Alliance technology was both impressive and somewhat unsettling to many. Zarkax, however, was not yet ready to concede. Marksmanship alone does not win wars, Private Chen. The Void Collective is a threat unlike anything your species has ever faced. Their biological and technological superiority sounds an awful lot like the challenges humanity has overcome throughout its history. Sir, Sarah interjected, then quickly added, with all due respect. The general's four fists clenched at the interruption, but curiosity got the better of him. Explain. Sarah stood a little straighter. Throughout Earth's history, humans have faced threats that seemed insurmountable. Diseases that wiped out millions, technologies that changed the face of warfare, environmental disasters that threatened our very existence. Each time, we adapted, we innovated, we survived. She gestured to the diverse array of aliens around them. The Void Collective assimilates the strengths of other species, yes, but so does the Alliance, in a way. We each bring our unique abilities to the fight. Humanity's strength lies in our adaptability, our creativity in the face of overwhelming odds. Zarkax was silent for a long moment, studying the small human before him. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost thoughtful. Pretty words, Private Chen. But words and target practice don't win wars. He turned to address the gathered aliens. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Never underestimate your enemy, no matter how small or weak they may appear. The Void Collective will exploit any weakness, any hesitation. The general's gaze swept across the hangar before settling back on Sarah. You've proven you can shoot, human. But the real test is yet to come. When the Void Collective truly attacks, we'll see if your species' vaunted adaptability is anything more than empty boasting. As if on cue, the ship's intercom crackled to life. General Zarkax to the bridge immediately. We're picking up unusual energy readings from the Orcs Nebula. The Kroloxian's expression hardened. All personnel, battle stations. This is not a drill. Move. As the aliens rushed to their posts, Sarah found herself face to face with the general once more. Zarkax leaned down, his massive face inches from hers. Prove me wrong, human, he growled. Show me that humanity deserves its place in this alliance. With that, he turned and strode towards the bridge, leaving Sarah standing alone in the rapidly emptying hangar. She looked down at the pistol in her hand, then out at the starfield visible through the hangar's force field. Somewhere out there, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was waiting, and humanity's first representative to the Intergalactic Alliance was about to face her trial by fire. Sarah Chen took a deep breath, holstered her weapon, and marched towards her station. Whatever was coming, she was ready to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. The crisis. The bridge of the INS Novastorm was a hive of activity as General Zarkax burst through the doors, his massive frame dominating the space. Alien crew members of various species worked frantically at their stations, their appendages flying over holographic displays and control panels. Report. Zarkax barked, striding to the central command platform. A Vespura officer buzzed forward, its insectoid wings vibrating with tension. General, we've detected massive energy fluctuations within the Orcs Nebula. The readings are unprecedented. Zarkax's eyes narrowed as he studied the main view screen. The Orcs Nebula loomed before them, a swirling mass of violet and indigo gases that stretched across several light years. Normally a navigational hazard due to its intense radiation and unpredictable plasma storms, the nebula now pulsed with an eerie rhythmic glow. Magnify Sector 7 Alpha, the general ordered. The screen zoomed in, revealing a horrifying sight. Within the nebula's chaotic swirls, massive shapes were taking form. Void collective ships, dozens of them, were coalescing from the very fabric of space itself. Their biomechanical hulls writhed and pulsated, absorbing the nebula's energy and growing larger by the second. Impossible, Zarkax breathed. They've weaponized the nebula itself. Sound the alarm. All hands to battle stations. As klaxons blared throughout the ship, the general's mind raced. The Nova Storm was a formidable vessel, but it wasn't designed to face an entire Void Collective fleet alone. Their mission to escort the research vessel now seemed like a distant memory. "Sir," a Petrova officer chimed in, its crystalline body resonating with urgency. "The nebula's radiation is interfering with our long-range communications. We can't call for reinforcements." Zarkax slammed a fist onto the command console. "Evasive maneuvers. Prepare all weapon systems. We need to buy time to." His words were cut short as the ship suddenly lurched violently to one side. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. "We're caught in some kind of tractor beam," the helm officer shouted. "It's pulling us into the nebula." The view screen showed the Nova Storm being inexorably drawn towards the swirling chaos of the Orcs Nebula. The Void Collective ships, now fully formed, began to encircle them like predators closing in for the kill. "Divert all power to the engines," Zarkax roared. "We need to break free." But it was too late. With a bone-jarring impact, the Nova Storm breached the outer layers of the nebula. Instantly, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Hull integrity compromised in sections 12 through 17. An officer reported, "The nebula's corrosive gases are eating through our outer defenses." Zarkax's mind raced through tactical options, each one seeming more desperate than the last. The Void Collective had outmaneuvered them completely. Their superior biological technology allowed them to thrive in environments that were lethal to most other life forms. "Deploy emergency force fields," the general ordered. "Seal off all affected areas. We need to contain the breach." As the crew scrambled to comply, a new alert sounded. The Petrova officer's voice was tinged with fear as it reported, "Sir, we're detecting multiple boarding parties. They're coming through the hull breaches." Zarkax's blood ran cold. The Void Collective's foot soldiers were nightmare fuel, hybrid creatures of flesh and machine, capable of surviving in the vacuum of space and assimilating any life form they encountered. "All security teams, prepare for imminent boarding action." The general bellowed into the ship-wide comm system. "This is not a drill. Repel all intruders at any cost." As if to punctuate his words, a horrific screech of tearing metal echoed through the ship. The lights flickered ominously, plunging the bridge into momentary darkness before emergency power kicked in. "Status report," Zarkax demanded. The Vespura officer's wings buzzed erratically as it responded. "Multiple hull breaches on decks 5 through 8. Life support is failing in those sections. And, sir, we're losing contact with our security teams in those areas." The implications were clear. The Void Collective was not just boarding. They were assimilating the crew, turning them into more of their horrific foot soldiers. Zarkax's mind raced through their dwindling options. The Nova Storm's main weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not repelling boarders. Their security forces, while well-trained, were being overwhelmed by an enemy that could turn their own comrades against them. It was at that moment that the general's gaze fell upon a small figure entering the bridge, Private Sarah Chen. The human's environmental suit was scorched and dented, evidence of the battles raging throughout the ship. Yet she moved with a determined grace, her modified pistol held at the ready. "Private Chen," Zarkax called out, a mix of surprise and relief in his voice. "Report. What's the situation on the lower decks?" Sarah snapped to attention, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Sir, the Void Collective forces are advancing rapidly. They're using some kind of adaptive armor that renders our standard weapons ineffective. We're losing ground fast." The general's four fists clenched in frustration. And yet you managed to fight your way here. How? A grim smile flickered across Sarah's face. Improvisation, sir. Their armor adapts to energy weapons, so I switched to kinetic. Good old-fashioned bullets still seem to do the trick, at least temporarily. Zarkak's eyes widened in surprise. It was such a simple solution, yet none of the Alliance species had thought of it. They had become so reliant on their advanced energy weapons that the idea of using projectiles seemed archaic. Before the general could respond, another violent tremor shook the ship. The main view screen crackled with static before revealing a nightmarish sight. A massive void collective hive ship was now visible through the swirling nebula gases, its tendrils reaching out towards the Nova Storm. Sir, the helm officer's voice was tight with fear. We've lost engine control. That thing is reeling us in. The bridge fell silent as the gravity of their situation sank in. The pride of the Intergalactic Alliance was about to fall to the Void Collective, taking with it any hope of stopping their advance across the galaxy. It was Sarah who broke the silence. "General," she said, her voice calm but urgent, "I have an idea. It's risky, probably suicidal, but it might just work." Zarkax turned to the human, seeing not the small, weak creature he had mocked earlier, but a fellow soldier with a spark of hope in her eyes. "I'm open to suggestions, Private. What do you have in mind?" Sarah quickly outlined her plan. It was audacious, borderline insane, and relied heavily on human ingenuity and the element of surprise. As she spoke, Zarkax felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. "It's crazy enough that it just might work," the general admitted. He turned to address the bridge crew. "Listen up. We're initiating Operation Human Ingenuity. All hands, prepare to execute on my mark." As the crew rushed to implement Sarah's plan, Zarkax found himself reevaluating his opinion of humanity. Perhaps there was more to these small, seemingly fragile creatures than met the eye. The Nova Storm shuddered again as the hive ship's tendrils made contact. Time was running out. The fate of the galaxy now rested on the shoulders of an unlikely hero, a human soldier armed with nothing but determination and a crazy plan. "Ready, Private Chen?" Zarkax asked, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Sarah checked her weapon one last time and nodded. "Ready, sir. Let's show the Void Collective what humanity can do." With a final bone-jarring lurch, the Nova Storm was pulled into the maw of the hive ship. The battle for survival and the future of the galaxy was about to begin. The human factor. The cavernous interior of the Void Collective hive ship pulsed with an otherworldly, sickly green light. Tendrils of biomechanical matter writhed along the walls, floor, and ceiling, giving the unsettling impression that the entire vessel was alive. In a sense, it was a grotesque fusion of organic and technological components, all working in terrifying harmony. At the heart of this nightmare stood Private Sarah Chen, her environmental suit's gleaming surface a stark contrast to the organic horror surrounding her. Beside her, the towering form of General Zarkax looked almost small in comparison to the vast chamber they found themselves in. "I hope this plan of yours works, human," Zarkax growled, his 4 arms each gripping a different weapon. "We're deep in the belly of the beast now." Sarah nodded, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. "It will, sir. We just need to reach the central neural node. Once there, we can upload the virus, and—" Her words were cut short as a piercing shriek echoed through the chamber. Dozens of Void Collective drones began pouring in from every opening, their bodies a horrific blend of assimilated alien species and mechanical augmentations. "Here they come." Zarkax roared, opening fire with all 4 of his weapons. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, impacting the oncoming horde. But just as Sarah had observed earlier, the drone's adaptive armor quickly neutralized the effect of the energy weapons. For every drone that fell, 2 more took its place, their bodies reshaping to resist the attacks. "Switch to kinetics," Sarah yelled, drawing her modified pistol. The sharp crack of gunfire joined the chaos as she began picking off drones with precise headshots. Zarkax cursed, dropping 2 of his energy rifles and unslinging a massive shotgun-like weapon from his back. "I can't believe I'm reduced to using this primitive tech," he grumbled, before unleashing a devastating barrage of hypervelocity flechettes into the advancing swarm. The effect was immediate and gruesome. The kinetic projectiles tore through the drone's armor, shredding biomechanical components and spraying the chamber with a noxious ichor. But still, they came. "We need to move," Sarah shouted over the din of battle. "The neural node should be 2 levels up. We can use the maintenance shafts to bypass their main forces." Zarkax nodded, providing covering fire as Sarah located an access panel hidden amongst the writhing tendrils. With a grunt of effort, she pried it open, revealing a narrow tunnel that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. "After you, Private," the general said, his tone a mix of respect and lingering doubt. Sarah didn't hesitate. She holstered her pistol and began climbing the ladder-like protrusions that lined the shaft. Zarkax followed, his massive form barely fitting in the confined space. As they ascended, the sounds of battle below faded, replaced by an eerie, pulsing hum that seemed to emanate from the very walls around them. Occasionally, a tendril would lash out, trying to ensnare them, but quick reflexes and well-placed shots kept them at bay. "How did you know about these maintenance shafts?" Zarkax asked between labored breaths. The climb was clearly more challenging for his larger frame. Sarah's reply was terse, focused on the task at hand. "Standard starship design. Even biomechanical monstrosities need routine maintenance. I figured the Void Collective would incorporate something similar." The general chuckled darkly. "Impressive deduction. Human. Perhaps there's more to your species than I first thought." They emerged on a higher level, finding themselves in a narrow corridor that twisted and undulated like the inside of some great serpent. At the far end, a pulsing orange glow hinted at their destination. "The neural node," Sarah whispered. "It's just ahead." But as they started forward, a new threat revealed itself. The floor beneath their feet began to ripple and shift, forming into grotesque, humanoid shapes. Void Collective sentinels, their bodies perfectly camouflaged until triggered, rose to block their path. "Blast!" Zarkax snarled, bringing his weapons to bear. "We're cut off." Sarah's mind raced, analyzing the situation with calm precision that belied the danger they were in. The sentinels were advancing slowly, their bodies already adapting to the kinetic weapons that had been so effective earlier. "General," she said, her voice steady, "I need you to trust me. When I give the signal, close your eyes and hold your breath." Zarkax looked at her incredulously. "What are you planning, human?" Sarah was already reaching into a pouch on her suit. "Something decidedly low-tech," she replied with a grim smile. As the sentinels closed in, their arms morphing into wicked blades and energy weapons, Sarah pulled out what looked like a simple metal canister. "Now!" she yelled, pulling a pin from the canister and hurling it at the advancing horde. Zarkax, to his credit, didn't hesitate. His eyes slammed shut, and he held his breath just as a blinding flash erupted from the canister, followed by a cloud of caustic smoke. The effect on the Void Collective sentinels was catastrophic. Their highly advanced sensory systems, optimized for detecting energy weapons and kinetic impacts, were completely overwhelmed by the simple combination of a flashbang and smoke grenade. They writhed in confusion, their adaptive capabilities working against them as they tried to process the sudden sensory overload. "Move!" Sarah shouted, grabbing the general's arm and pulling him forward. They sprinted past the disoriented sentinels, who were still reconfiguring their bodies to deal with a threat they couldn't understand. They burst into the neural node chamber, a vast spherical room dominated by a pulsing organic supercomputer. Tendrils of data and energy coursed through the air, connecting to various points around the sphere. By the cosmic core, Zarkax breathed, momentarily awestruck by the alien beauty of the scene. Sarah was already moving, pulling a small device from another pouch. "Cover me," she ordered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I need 2 minutes to upload the virus." As she worked, interfacing her device with the alien technology, Zarkax took up a defensive position. The disoriented sentinels were recovering, and the sounds of approaching drones echoed from the corridor. "Whatever you're doing, human, do it fast," the general shouted, unleashing a barrage of fire at the first wave of enemies that poured into the chamber. Sarah's fingers flew over her device, interfacing with systems beyond her comprehension through sheer force of will and human ingenuity. Come on," she muttered. The battle around her intensified. Zarkax was a whirlwind of destruction, his 4 arms wielding an array of weapons with deadly precision. But even his prodigious skills were being pushed to the limit by the endless horde of Void Collective monstrosities. "Chen," he roared, as a particularly large drone breached his defenses, its clawed appendage slashing across his chest. Sarah's head snapped up, taking in the situation in a split second. Without hesitation, she drew her pistol and fired a single, perfect shot. The bullet streaked past Zarkax's head, missing him by millimeters, and struck the drone directly in its central processor. As the drone collapsed, Sarah turned back to her work. 30 more seconds," she called out. Those 30 seconds stretched into an eternity. Zarkax fell back, step by step, forming a last line of defense around Sarah and the neural node. His weapons ran dry, reduced to using them as clubs against the endless swarm. And then, just as all seemed lost, Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. "It's done. Brace for impact." A pulse of energy erupted from her device, spreading through the neural node and out into the entire high ship. The effect was immediate and devastating. Drones fell lifeless to the ground. The sentinels collapsed into inert piles of biomatter, and the very walls of the ship began to wither and die. Sarah grabbed Zarkax, pulling him towards the exit. "We need to go now. The ship is breaking down." As they ran, the general found his voice. "What did you do, human?" Sarah's reply was punctuated by the sound of rending metal and organic matter. "Introduced a little chaos into their perfect system. A virus that makes them distrust their own data. They're tearing themselves apart trying to purge the infection." They reached the maintenance shaft just as a massive tremor shook the dying high ship. Without a word, they began their descent, racing against time as the vessel that had seemed so invincible mere minutes ago crumbled around them. As they emerged into the hangar where the Nova Storm was docked, Zarkax finally allowed himself a moment of awe. This small, seemingly insignificant human had done what entire fleets had failed to accomplish. With nothing but quick thinking and resourcefulness, she had brought low the terror of the galaxy. "Private Chen," he said, his voice solemn, "I believe I owe you an apology, and my deepest thanks." Sarah, breathing heavily from their escape, managed a small smile. "Just doing my job, sir. Now let's get out of here and warn the Alliance. The Void Collective may be down, but they're not out. We've got a lot of work ahead of us." As they boarded the Nova Storm, leaving behind the disintegrating high ship, Zarkax found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about warfare, adaptation, and the potential of seemingly lesser species. The human factor, it seemed, was not to be underestimated. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. And now, the Intergalactic Alliance had a secret weapon: humanity's unpredictable, indomitable spirit. The revelation. The INS Nova Storm limped through space, its once pristine hull now scared and pitted from its harrowing encounter with the Void Collective. Inside the ship's main conference room, an air of tense anticipation hung over the gathered alien representatives of the Intergalactic Alliance. General Zarkax stood at the head of the long table, his imposing figure somehow diminished by the weight of recent events. His eyes swept across the assembled dignitaries. Vespar ambassadors with their iridescent wings folded tightly, Petrova emissaries whose crystalline bodies refracted the room's light, and a dozen other species, each more alien than the last. "Esteemed colleagues," Zarkax began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber, "we stand at a crossroads. The threat of the Void Collective has been temporarily halted, but at a great cost. Our victory was narrow, and it has revealed both weaknesses in our defenses and unexpected strengths in our ranks." A murmur rippled through the gathering. Many had heard rumors of the Nova Storm's impossible escape from the high ship, but details had been scarce. The general continued, "It is my duty, and my honor, to present to you the individual responsible for our survival and the destruction of the Void Collective high ship. Private Sarah Chen of Earth, step forward." All eyes turned to the small figure that moved to stand beside Zarkax. Sarah Chen, still clad in her battered environmental suit, looked almost comically out of place next to the towering Kroloxian and the array of alien dignitaries. Yet there was a quiet strength in her posture, a determined set to her jaw that commanded respect. "Private Chen," Zarkax said, his tone formal but tinged with newfound respect, "please recount for the Council the events that transpired aboard the high ship." Sarah nodded, her voice clear and steady as she began to speak. She detailed their infiltration of the high ship, the battles against adaptive drones and sentinels, and the final desperate plan to upload a virus into the Void Collective's neural network. As she spoke, holographic displays flickered to life around the room, showing footage from the Nova Storm sensors and Sarah's suit camera. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as the humans' quick thinking and unorthodox tactics unfolded before them. When Sarah finished her account, the room erupted into a cacophony of alien voices, each speaking over the other in a blend of awe, disbelief, and lingering skepticism. A Vespera ambassador buzzed loudly, its translator struggling to keep up with its rapid speech. "Impossible. How could a primitive species devise a strategy that our most advanced AIs couldn't conceive?" "Agreed," chimed in a Petrova emissary, its crystalline form vibrating with agitation. "The humans' actions, while commendable, must have been a fluke. We cannot base our future defensive strategies on such unpredictability." Zarkax raised all four of his arms, calling for silence. "Esteemed colleagues, I understand your doubts. I shared them once. But I have witnessed firsthand the potential of humanity, and I believe we would be fools to dismiss it." He gestured to Sarah. "Private Chen's success was not merely luck. It was the result of a unique combination of factors that we, in our advanced civilizations, have overlooked. Human adaptability, their ability to think creatively under pressure, and their willingness to embrace unorthodox solutions. These are weapons as powerful as any in our arsenal." The general's words hung in the air, met with a mixture of thoughtful nods and skeptical frowns. Sarah, for her part, stood silently, her expression neutral but her mind racing. She knew that this moment would define not just her own future, but that of her entire species in the galactic community. A new voice cut through the tension. A Orcs philosopher, its gelatinous form shifting colors as it spoke. "Perhaps," it pondered, its words translated into a soothing tone, "we are witnessing the very essence of evolution. The Void Collective adapts through assimilation, but humanity, they adapt through innovation. Is this not a power worth cultivating?" This perspective seemed to resonate with many in the room. The atmosphere shifted, skepticism giving way to curious speculation. Seizing the moment, Zarkax pressed on. "Consider this. For millennia, we have fought the Void Collective to a stalemate. Our technology advances, and they assimilate it. We develop new strategies, and they adapt to counter them. But humanity brings chaos to that ordered system. They introduce variables that the collective cannot easily predict or counteract." Seizing the moment, Zarkax pressed on. "Consider this. For millennia, we have fought the Void Collective to a stalemate. Our technology advances, and they assimilate it. We develop new strategies, and they adapt to counter them. But humanity brings chaos to that ordered system. They introduce variables that the collective cannot easily predict or counteract." Sarah, sensing an opportunity, stepped forward. "If I may, esteemed council," she said, her voice firm but respectful. "Humanity doesn't seek to replace the incredible advancements and unique strengths of your civilizations. We offer something different, a complementary approach that can enhance the Alliance's capabilities." She gestured to the holographic displays still showing scenes from their battle. "Where you see primitive tactics, we see opportunities. Where you rely on complex technology, we find simple solutions that can bypass advanced defenses. Our history is filled with examples of overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds through creativity and sheer determination." The room fell silent as the aliens contemplated her words. It was Zarkax who broke the silence, his voice carrying a note of finality. "I propose that we fully integrate humanity into our military and scientific endeavors. Not as subordinates, but as equals. Their unique perspective may well be the key to finally defeating the Void Collective once and for all." The debate that followed was intense, with arguments ranging from enthusiastic support to vehement opposition. Sarah stood through it all, a calm island in a sea of alien politics. She knew that the fate of Earth and humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance. Hours passed before a consensus was reached. The Vespera ambassador, speaking for the Council, delivered their decision. "In light of recent events and the potential demonstrated by Private Chen, the Intergalactic Alliance hereby extends full membership status to Earth and its inhabitants. Furthermore, we will establish a new division within our military and scientific branches, focused on integrating human ingenuity with our advanced technologies." A ripple of excitement passed through the room. Even those who had opposed the motion seemed intrigued by the possibilities this new arrangement presented. Zarkax turned to Sarah, a smile breaking across his alien features. "Congratulations, Private Chen. Or should I say, Commander Chen. Someone needs to lead this new human integration initiative." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "Sir, I'm honored, but surely there are more qualified." The general cut her off with a laugh that reverberated through the chamber. "More qualified to think like a human? I think not. You've earned this, Commander. The galaxy needs you, needs all of humanity, if we're to survive the challenges ahead." As the reality of the situation sank in, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She thought of Earth, of the billions of humans who had no idea how drastically their place in the universe had just changed. She thought of the battles to come, the lives that would be shaped by the decisions made in this room. Taking a deep breath, Sarah straightened her posture and met Zarkax's gaze. "I accept the position, General, and I promise you, promise all of you, that humanity will not let the Alliance down. We have much to learn, but also much to offer. Together, we'll show the Void Collective and any other threat that the spirit of cooperation, innovation, and determination can overcome any obstacle." As the council chamber erupted into a chorus of alien voices, some cheering, others still debating the implications, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with unknowns and dangers beyond imagination. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was facing the impossible and finding a way to prevail. The age of humanity in the galactic community had begun, and with it, a new hope for the future of all sentient life in the face of the ever-looming Void Collective threat. The revelation of human potential had changed everything, and the stars themselves seemed to burn a little brighter for it.